Morty, we've got to turn the project in early.
Hey everyone, it's time for Project. We'll see if we get some people in here today to talk about Project and how to do it. But the project is due tonight for extra credit. You'll notice right here we have due Monday night by 11:59 for extra credit. We have it's due for regular credit on, well, that's Monday night for regular credit. For Friday, as in tonight, it is extra credit. So get the assignment done early, but don't turn it in if you don't have it complete. Don't just burn through the assignment and be like, I'm going to turn it in, get it done correctly, and maybe if no one's here, I'm going to talk about maybe some key things I see people not highlighting in the project. I help out with a lot of projects, see a lot of great projects. Hey, can you show us how to make the pivot chart? Of course. Nicolette, you are first, so let's take your question on how to make the pivot chart. So let's do that. We have the haircut data. Let's talk about how to get this data over here. No, I don't remember those files. So this is the data inside of Excel. That is goal or task number 1 to get the data. Hey, good to see you, Ben. So good to see everybody. Yeah. Let's hop over here to our jump data. So we're going to open up jump for the moment. Question 5B, Abby, we will do that one next. Let's go. We will do 5B next. So how do we make a pivot chart? So if you notice, I am going to take my data in jump. This is the first task, is to have your jump data and go here. If we're on a PC, this is for my PC people, we need to go to File, and then we need to go to Save As. This is for PC. There's a video on how to do it on Mac. There'll be a button where it says Export, and you'll export as an Excel file. So for Macs, you'll do Export. For PC, you'll do Save As. We're just going to save it as. We're going to change the file type to XLSX. That's going to save as an Excel file. So we save, and it saves. We'll do the saving. We'll do the overwriting, or I've already done it. Now it should open up in Excel right here, and we see the data. Remember, on a Mac, you're going to do the export. On a Mac, do export as Excel. I have a video on it. If you're stuck on it, email me immediately. We'll get it fixed up. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hit Control A. Control A, just hit Control A one time, is going to select all your data right there. With all the data selected, we're going to click the Insert button, and we're going to go to Pivot Table. I'm not going to do the whole thing here, but I'm going to get it kind of started for you. We're going to click OK, and then with this right here, we're going to start dragging in our variables. Now, it's hard to see because it's by my head, so I'm going to make it really big right here. But you have your filter. This is kind of a good review for the test. Filter lets you put in variables, like maybe you're like, which we won't use filter for this project, but maybe you want to filter on a day of the week. I think I have to make it bigger right here. It just says all. Maybe want to look at tip amounts. Hint, hint, hint for the projects. We don't want to look at sum for the project. Another hint. I'm not going to do the full thing right here, but we could filter out different days right here, and this is not what we'll be doing on the project. I will say this, in the other video, I kind of go through and I do a very similar one to the project with another data set, but this is how to get started on making your pivot table and pivot chart. Remember, you are not turning in the pivot table. Do not turn in this table when you make it. You want to turn it into a pivot chart, and there's the pivot chart. You can make the pivot chart as soon as you make your pivot table, and then anything you do to this will augment. I hope no one turns this in. If you get something like this, you've done something ridiculous right here. But if you notice, as I'm making this changes with me. It is a dynamic object that changes, and this is nowhere near the right answer, but I do want to point out some things. When you do make your graphic, this quick layout option is awesome. This is a ridiculous graphic. This is not anything close to the answer. So let me make it a little less ridiculous. Still ridiculous. Let me make it not as cool. That's not as ridiculous. You notice now it's starting to look a little bit better. We're going to do the quick layout. We're going to add in axis titles. And do not copy this graphic. Do not copy what I did. I'm not saying that because I don't want you to copy me, but this is not the right answer to the project. But is it making more sense, Nicolette, now? Did this help out? Did this get you over the hurdle? That's kind of our goals right here, is to kind of be like, okay, let's find out what to get you to that next step. Yes, definitely. That's an awesome answer. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. That's why I like doing these online office hours, because we can see where people are stuck. And then you get it fixed up, and it sounds like you're near the end of the project, so you can get it turned in tonight for extra credit. Great job. What are you looking for with question 5B? I think 5B is the Mosaic plots. So let's talk a little bit about Mosaic plots. Let me double check the question just in case it's not Mosaic plots. No, it is not Mosaic plots. It's side-by-side box plots. I realized that right in that moment. My brain said, no, it's not. So when we go down here and we see 5b says, so we first need to create some side-by-side box plots, big points on this. So kind of nice. If we make the graphic, we get a lot of the points. And then write a brief description between the two variables, making sure to mention the summary statistics for those who paid with card and cash, the summary statistics you choose for center and spread should be based on the shape of the data. So the summary statistics we choose for center and spread should be based on the shape of the data. I don't even know how I scrolled up that quickly. So let's think about this right here. So we're going to go in and we're going to do a kind of similar problem to this. We're going to go over here to the project old data, some old project data. And actually, I don't want to do that one. Oops, is my jump going to be crazy today? You okay, jump? Doing anything? Jump's not happy with me for some reason. Oh, that's why. Let's go back here and open up this data set. Now, that's not the data set I wanted. This is not your data. This is a different data set, but am I going mad? Oh, they're open there. It was just behind there. So you can talk in first person, that's fine. Most businesses just care about, how good you are at explaining your point, how quickly and directly you are to the point. There's different preferences per different business. But the biggest thing we want is that you make data-driven decisions. This whole course, business analytics, statistics, is all about data-driven decisions. So you need to make sure you're quoting the numbers. You'll hear as I do some explanations right here on how to kind of talk about some side-by-side box plots. Let's look at gender. And we'll put gender right here, and we'll put high school GPA. And let's see if there's some differences. Let's go to quantiles. What do we see? Now, if you notice right here, I've got some summary statistics for my box plot. Of course, and I want to make this very, very, very clear. When you take your screenshot should include, and here's a good screenshot. We'll try to take an amazing screenshot right here. Oh, that is top tier. I'm taking it so. Oh no, I got an A-. I might crop off that portion right there. I got a little too much. Let's talk about take your screenshot and put your screenshot inside of here. And obviously don't put it in the instructions, but we're going to put our screenshot in the report. We're going to make our screenshot a decent size. We're going to center it. We're going to make it nice and neat. These are just little things you can do to make your report look nicer. If you notice, I have this little part I don't want. I know it's the tiniest a bit, but Brian is quite the perfectionist at times. So I'm going to go to picture, format, and crop, which I just can't see today. There it is. And I'm going to crop out that little bit, and that's not what you want. You want the very uttermost edge of it for the crop. You have to grab that black bar, which I can't seem to grab today. There we go. There we go. Okay, good. Don't worry. You don't want too much. You don't want crazy things. Hey, Campbell. And so I'll take Campbell's question next. But let's look at this graphic right here. I'm actually going to move it a little more left so it's not covering me. But now we can easily see the graphic and we talk about what's going on right here. When you look at this graphic, you'll notice that we're comparing the medians for males and females GPAs. We want to compare the median female GPA to the median male GPA. And 50% of females have a 3.9 high school GPA or more, whereas 50% of males have a 3.7 high school GPA or more, or higher, I could say. If you notice, listen how I'm talking about the medians. I'm saying 50% of females have a GPA of 3.9 or higher, represented by their median. I could call it the median too. It doesn't hurt to do that. I could also say due to the skew of these distributions and outliers, the median, because there is like a pull to the left down here. There's a little heavier tails on the left. There are some outliers on the right side, but I kind of see, especially with the male distribution, more of a pull to the low side, so a left skew. So I'm going to say the proper measure of center will be the median due to the skew, and the proper measure of spread will be the IQR represented by the distance the 25th percentile is from the 75th percentile. But then I need to quote these numbers. You'll notice that females have an IQR going from 3.7 to 4.0125. So I would take that difference and I would say the IQR for females is represented by their 75th percentile of 4.0125 to 3.75, which is a distance of this. This represents the spread of the middle 50% of females' GPAs. quote the numbers. I should even quote the IQR. I should say the IQR is 0.3125. And that has to be obtained by taking, and let's make it very, very clear, I need to take these two numbers right here for both of them and take the difference. And it looks to me that males have a greater IQR. There's a greater difference between the male IQR than there is the female IQR. So if you notice this, you can barely see it in the box plot, but the male's box in the box plot is a little bit wider than the female one, just a little bit by like 0.2 or so. So does that help with that question right there, Abby? Does that help better understand that we're going to talk about and compare the medians? We're going to compare the IQRs. Make sure to give the numbers. Always quote your numbers because you want to use data-driven decisions and back it. Awesome. Glad to hear that. I see Kimball's question. Julia will do it. Yes. How can you tell if each variable in the box plot is skewed or not? For yours, it's a little more obvious. For this one, great question. This one, we notice that there's a little more data down here. I'm going to use the green pen. Red pen looks like it's an error. We're going to add in a green pen right here. And if you notice, there's a little more data, a little more of a skew, which indicates a pull to the low side. There's a slight left skew. Now, here's a really good test review question. Histograms are better at looking at shapes of distributions. If you remember from your project, the first thing you looked at, we'll do a new graphic right here. The first thing you looked at was the shape of tips, and you should get a histogram that looks something like this. Wow, was that instant color change pen? You got a shape of a distribution that looked something like this right here. I probably didn't do enough justice. That tail looks a little too long, so we're going to fix it. Go away, tail. There we go. That tail's just a tiny bit too long. It should be 1.5 IQRs at max. There we go. So this is what your distribution looks like, and then we get a box plot of all of it. So there is a right skew to it. There's a pull to the right side. And so if we analyze tips again, tip amount again, we do see a right skew to it also. So the proper center is going to be the median. So let's put an arrow towards that. We'll go with space pen. And then we also need to analyze the IQR. The IQR is the proper measure of spread. So IQR will be the measure of spread we'll use, and the center will be determined by the median due to the skew of the data. And Campbell said, "Hi, I'm kind of confused on how to write the executive summary. Do I need to mention all the drafts?" Let's do executive summary. Let's do this. Executive summary, because I've only got like 15 more minutes tops. Executive summary right here. First thing, summarize why we are writing the report. In this portion right here of the first part of the executive summary, you're going to talk about why are we doing this report? What are we collecting data on? How many data points did we collect? What variables did we collect? It's kind of a big, overview of the report. Now, the second thing you will do, and this is what Campbell was talking about, is give results with numbers. So I would say this is one of the bigger parts of your executive summary right here, to give the results with the numbers. Now you don't want to just take whole paragraphs and just put them in the executive summary. You want to take a paragraph that is maybe, we'll put it over here. If you take a paragraph that's like this, you want to boil that down into like one sentence. So you want to take a whole paragraph and boil it down into like a sentence, like with numbers. Make sure it says, like, if you have a paragraph from your bar chart talking about the days of the week that people are visiting your hair salon, you want to then boil that down into like, well, we notice that most of our business is concentrated on these days with blank amount of visits, and the least amount of business is concentrated on this day with only blank amount of visits. So that would be a summarization of like a paragraph down to just a sentence or two. It's kind of a very quick way of doing it. And we'll hop over here. We got more questions. Thank you everyone for asking all these questions. Number 3 right here, the last thing we need to do is give suggestions or give data-driven suggestions. I'm gonna, okay, I got it from. What do I mean by give data-driven suggestions? Hop out of the way here. What do I mean by give data-driven suggestions? Is that when you look at your results, it's like number one is what are we doing? Number two is what did we find? Number three is now what are we going to do about it? Because we have the numbers. Well, what are the numbers giving us as suggestions? I would focus, if I'm writing my report here, I would have this be 2 sentences, I would have this maybe be 4 sentences, and I'd have this be 2 sentences here. And each of my 2 sentences there would be 2 strong suggestions. I think it says 3 to 6 sentences, but it never hurts to write a little bit more and make sure it's very clear. Make sure each sentence is impactful. A very non-impactful summary of what we were doing would be something like, this is my report for Stat 201 class. Okay, if you have that, delete it, yay. But a very impactful sentence would be, this is a report commissioned for the salon taken from a random sample of blank amount of customers, which collected variables blank, blank, and blank. And then think of the next thing we might say. Our next sentence that would be impactful is, our objective with this report, everyone's going to write if I say it, but saying what your objective is next would be really impactful on why are we writing this report? So here's what this report is. Here's the reason we're writing it. Here's our results. Here's what we're going to do about it. Make sure you're giving the numbers at all times too. Usually I can scan someone's executive summary, and if I don't see numbers, I kind of know there's an issue. If you're not quoting your sample size, if you're not quoting, the most common days of business, if you're not quoting what your tips were and then you're not telling me what to do at the end of it and making a data-driven decision. I can't highlight enough, and we don't literally mean highlight in the report. We mean kind of like I am literally highlighting. But when you say your decisions, they should be data-driven. Let's see. We'll do some more questions here. How can you tell if each variable in the box plot is good? I think we did that one. Is there a test that we can run to make sure that these variables have a relationship between the variables? In 5C, yes. 5C is the medians one. And so, Julia, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't put this in the report because we're not to this yet, but it should be a Kruskal-Wallis test. And so we should be able to, is it right here? Kruskal-Wallis, where's Kruskal-Wallis on here? I don't use jump. I don't use jump as often. Robust, well, they got robust ones, unequal variances, non-parametric tests. Wilcox, I think there's median test. Cool. Yep. There's a statistically significant difference between the medians, and this is using, is this a Kruskal-Wallis? Or am I, so what we have right here is, I'm just looking over the results, it's using a z-score, and wow, that z is ridiculous. If you know how z-scores work, that is a very large z-score of 9.42. Do not do this. Let me put this. Do not do this. Anyone watching this, don't include this in your report. We haven't gotten to this yet in statistics. Someone just asked a question that's kind of beyond what we're doing. Don't do, not that. Dang it. I don't want, no. Wait. Don't do this. Don't do the median test. Do not do this. Do not do that median test. You want in your report to have this right here. Let me put it like this. Okay. I'm going to take some more questions here next. You need this. You need, just making sure people know exactly what they need. You need this right here. Make sure the median's off the screen. You need this in your report. You need these portions right here. So you need these things right here. These are the things you need in your report. And you don't do the median test. We just haven't done it. We don't expect you to interpret it. I know I did it. It was asked in the chat, and I like doing questions like that. There is a statistically significant difference between the medians suggested by the p-value here, which is well below 0.05 for statistical significance. Kind of a good thing that we should know. This can help us with later on, but do not do that in the report. The graders will get very confused. So please, anyone watching the video, do not do that median test I just did. Don't include that. I can't say that enough. Just when I do stuff in a video, sometimes people will just do it because I do it. Don't do the median test. Take out the earbuds, or wait, no, put them in. Some people listen to this on mute. Do the responses to each question need to be numbered? No numbers. So let's put in here, let's put in red, no numbers. Great question. I'm hitting as many questions as I can because I'm going to go to a meeting here in a moment. Let's see, there's more questions here. When will you stop answering emails today? I'll always answer emails. Yeah, no, send me it as soon as you can. The sooner the better. I answer as many emails as I can. On question 6, what is an example of a relationship between the given variables? No worries, Julia. Julia, check back. Do this, Julia. Rewind the video, and I just did a big part on the executive summary. So you can actually rewind a live video. If you go down to the bottom of it, go to where I started writing the executive summary part, and you'll see I start talking about it about 7 minutes ago. You're welcome, Julia. And if you're still confused, email me. But great question. And I love that you can do that on these live videos. You can like go back in time. So yeah. How do I add chart title, axis title, and data table on Excel for question 6? You want to go right here. And if you're on a Mac, you won't have this plus button. This is on PCs, but you can add chart elements up here. You want to, if you're not clicked inside the table, click inside the pivot chart, not the table. Go to the pivot chart. You should see the design tab appear, and go right here, and you should have these options. But one of my favorite things to do is to use the quick layout. It adds everything but the lower axis, and then you can go to the axis titles and add the primary horizontal. But this has all the options. So did that help, William? And then William, let me talk about this right here. This is not the proper graphic. I like to do questions that are not exactly the same as you guys, but I'm looking at right here if somebody is married and their payment method, and also the sum of the tips. Let me change this to average tip. So if you notice here, we're doing something similar to your guys again. I haven't filled out all the information. Oh, good, Abby, we'll do that one next. Great question, Abby. If you notice right here, and I also want to change my decimals on these. You can change decimals quickly to 2 decimals by changing this to currency. I'm clicking on the number, and then I'm holding shift, and then I'm clicking the lower number and changing it to currency. So right here, there's 2 variables to analyze. So I'm not going to do it completely because I'm going to do the next question with Abby. The 2 things to analyze here are the differences between married and not married people, and then the differences between cash and card tip. The difference between cash and card tip, I can draw on this. Oh, this is so awesome. The difference between cash and card tip is seen with the green arrows that I'm pointing at, where the difference between married and non-married people is more of the red arrows. You notice there's smaller differences between the married and not married people. Most of the differences we're seeing from with this graphic, which is not part of our report, this is just another problem I'm doing for another example. Most of the differences I'm seeing, and I would quote the numbers, are coming from the differences between cash and tips, between card and cash. And we see here that married people pay cash tips on average of $8.42, where people who use card, who are married, pay card tips of $5.59 on average. And so there appears to me, especially when you look at this, to be a bigger difference. And I would also quote the differences right here. The differences between married and non-married people using card is a lot smaller, with $5.59, I'm talking about this number right here, compared to $4.472. You can increase font size on these, you don't have to, but if you click on the numbers and you go to home and you increase font size, you can make them bigger because I am blind. And so doing this right here, talking these through is a great thing to do, and I think we have time for just one more question here. How can you tell if there's a relationship with the Mosaic plot? And Sarah says, what would be a good title for the graph with the 3 variables? Yep. For a 2 variable one, I just do blank versus blank. You could say, think about what we're displaying right here. This one would be average tip with respect to relationship status and payment method. Average tip with respect to payment method and marital status. Now be careful, yours will not have marital status, but average tip, like say the variable names, this with respect to this and this. So that way you mention all the variable names. Sarah, great question in the chat. Make sure to mention all the variable names in the chart title up there at the top. So great question, Sarah. And I think we're hitting upon all these questions right here. How do I create the actual graph? To create the actual graph, click inside of here, and still got your question, Abby. We'll do it next. We click right here, we go to Analyze, and we go to Pivot Chart. If you have an older version of Excel, it's a little bit different, but this is the current version of Excel. So email me if you have a problem that it's not there, or update Excel. And this is the current version of Excel for Mac and PC. Is if you're inside of the pivot table, the Analyze button will have a pivot chart option. So Sam, is it there? Do you see it? Hopefully you do. Abby, we're going to do your question real quick. It's going to be close to a speed run because I have to be somewhere in 10 minutes. Let's do this. We're going to hop back into here and let's talk about making a mosaic plot. So to make the mosaic plot, we're going to go to Analyze Fit Y by X, and hopefully slow this down, review it, because I'm going to be running away in 3 minutes. We're going to look at gender, and we're going to look at if someone has broken a bone. So yes, time for speedrun. You got it. I should pull up speedrun. I need to fix the button. I didn't have enough time today. I'll be able to fix my next class. Now you need to go to the red arrow here. We're going to remove total and remove column. Notice I've removed these two in the middle. I'm only displaying the count and the row percentage. You don't get points off if you have more, but we're just going to talk about what we need. So now I'm going to go right here, and on the Mac, you'll be able to see this. On the Mac, the bar is just there normally. On the PC, you have to click. I'm going to click the selection tool, which will be the third icon on the Mac. You click it. You click contingency table one time. Let go. And now click and drag. Now, a lot of people have been dragging all the way over there. Don't drag all the way over there. It's not the end of the world, but drag right there. That's where you want to drag. And if you notice, it's right beside it. That's kind of the goal of this. We want this image to look awesome. Now we're going to go ahead and remove away the selection tool and go to the arrow. So now we're going to screenshot this, and we're going to get a nice, amazing screenshot. We're going to go here, and we got it. You know, I'm actually going to re-screenshot because I do want to say contingency table and mosaic plot of that. So there we go. Great. Oh, gender. I almost missed gender. If you take a little bit more, not the end of the world. You just want to make sure you have enough. We're going to go over here. We're going to drop in, and we got this, and let's do it. Who is more likely to break a bone, males or females? When you look at the graphic right here, you can try to isolate where people are breaking a bone and who's breaking a bone. It looks to me like females, 59.17% of them do not break bones, as opposed to 40.83% of them do break bones. Where males, more of them are breaking bones. It's kind of a flip of it. It's kind of like, I'm rounding it, and I would quote the numbers, but it's almost like 60% of females don't break bones and 60% of males do break bones. Now, of course, that doesn't mean all females don't and all males do. It's just that if I were to talk about this, I'd probably compare, well, one, I'd start quoting these differences here to say, given that somebody is a female, which means this right here, the probability of them breaking a bone is blank. Given that somebody is a male, the probability of them breaking a bone is blank. I'd start giving the percentages, quote the numbers. But you'd be like, if the more numbers you mention, the better you're doing. And that'd probably take the differences here and here. And that's the speed run of it. But be talking about the differences. And you need to know for the test that these are the conditional distributions and these are the marginals. There's two marginals. That's the marginal distribution of gender. That's the marginal distribution of broken a bone. And where I've written the C's, those are the conditional distributions of female and the conditional distribution of male. Like given someone is female, given someone is male. And that's got it. Thank you guys so much, and here's that special message again from Rick Sanchez.
Morty, we've got to turn the project in early.